So it seems our multiculturalism disease isn't just spreading in our cities, it's also spreading in our prisons. Prison race war. Fears tensions set to explode as gangs pitch against Muslim inmates. Prison guards have been put on high alert in British prisons as race wars threaten to break out in jails across the country, it has been claimed. Now before we actually start reading this article, I've got to pick a problem here. Race war? What race war? There is no race war. Once again, how many times do you have to say this? How many times? Muslims aren't a race, alright? Islam isn't a race. But they just can't help themselves. They've got to try and tie race into everything. It's so stupid. Anyway, let's read on. Groups of inmates are said to have launched the Death Before Dishonor groups to protect themselves from attacks. Tensions are bubbling in the country's maximum security prisons over risk of violence from Muslim inmates. The gangs, made up of non-Muslim members, have created the DBD groups from close supervision centres housing the most dangerous prisoners in the UK. So basically we have prisoners forming groups to protect themselves from Islamic gangs in jail. And I know gang warfare isn't new in regards to prisons, but as we read on, we'll understand a little more. A source told the Sunday People there have been top security briefings warning of this organisation being set up and focusing on inmates in close supervision units. So there is serious concern with so many hundreds, if not thousands, of followers of Islam in the prison system. At many of our prisons, there is already a huge tension between Muslims and non-Muslim prisoners. Clearly, there is deep concern that this group could expand and the conflict could escalate out of all control. And I just love the spin that this source is putting on this information. Like, the real problem here is the non-Muslim people starting a gang. It's not the already existing Islamic gangs that have been running riot. No, not them. It's these new people. This is a real issue. Let's find out more about this DBD, shall we? At least one of the groups linked to the DBD organisation is the Piranhas gang operating in prisons in Liverpool and Manchester. It has been claimed that they began operating after extremist Muslim prisoners began assaulting other inmates. The news comes after an ex-soldier was allegedly beaten to within an inch of his life in prison. Former paratrooper Craig Jones was beaten by a gang of 8 who were reportedly linked to a terror attack. So like I said, this is a response to Islamic gangs beating down other inmates. And just listen to me right now, listen to the position that I'm being put in. I'm being forced to defend hardened criminals as they form prison gangs to defend themselves against Islamic gangs. That's the position that I'm being put in here. I don't want to defend these people. I don't condone of gang warfare or anything like that, but what else can they do? Most of those involved in gangs are said to be some of the most dangerous prisoners in Britain. They've been accused of murder and serious crime, and many are serving life terms. According to reports, 1 in 5 inmates serving sentences in Britain's maximum security jails are Muslim. 1 in 5. In January, it was reported that there was a total of 5,885 prisoners in Category A prisons in the UK, of which 1,229 follow the Islamic faith, an increase of 23% in 5 years. And look at these numbers. 1,229 inmates of a total of 5,885 in Category A prisons, so these are the most high security prisons in the country, housing the most dangerous people. 1,229 of them are Islamic, are Muslims. Now, admittedly, math isn't my strong suit, I'm not very good with numbers, and I have been known on occasion to count with my fingers when I can't work something out. But thankfully, we have calculators these days, so I don't actually need to be good at math to work some stuff out. Yeah, so 1,229 out of 5,885 calculates to just under 21%. So, just about 21% of the worst criminals in this country in jail are Muslim. And according to the UK 2011 census, Muslims only make up 4.4% of the total population in the United Kingdom. So they make up 4.4% of the total population, but almost 21% of Category A prison inmates. Does that seem a little off to you? That seems like quite a leap, doesn't it? Quite disproportionate there. Rather concerning. Okay, so we know there's a problem. Right, so what's the reason for this problem? Let's dig into that a little. And what better way to do that than to read an article by The Independent? Oh, this article's a horror show. And I must say this article's from 2014, so it's a little old, but it's still relevant. The number of Muslims in the prison population has more than doubled to nearly 12,000 in a decade, figures from the Ministry of Justice show. The dramatic rise prompted calls for ministers to investigate whether police and the courts are treating Muslims more harshly, with some suggesting the rise is due to Islamophobia. Oh, God's sake, Islamophobia. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, yeah. The police are racist, the courts are racist, they're all Islamophobic, that's why there's so many Muslims in jail, yeah. Oh yeah, you really cracked it, Independent, you really cracked it. Yeah, people are calling for ministers to investigate this dramatic spike, but not because they're saying, well, why are these people committing all these crimes? It's because they want to know if the police are racist. You couldn't write this, honestly. This is just... you almost have to laugh. If you didn't laugh, you'd cry. Muslims represent only 4.7% of the population in England and Wales, according to the most recent census, yet 1 in 7 prisoners, 14% in England and Wales, is a Muslim, according to the statistics. That's for all prisons across the country, by the way, not just the Category A prisons that I was referring to before. In some jails, the proportion of Islamic inmates is more than 1/3. And in Whitemore, a Category A prison in Cambridgeshire, it is as high as 43%. But that's all down to Islamophobia, obviously, isn't it? The Muslim prison population has increased from 7.7% in 2002 to 14% in 2013 and is set to continue rising rapidly because of the large numbers of Muslim teenagers in youth jails. So when these teenagers get out of the youth jails, they're obviously going to go back into society and commit more crimes as adults, obviously, because they're not integrated into society. Oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm trashing multiculturalism again. I'm sorry, it's Islamophobia. It's Islamophobia. There's no other problem. It's just Islamophobia. Okay, diversity is our strength. Okay, diversity is our strength. Iconoclast, come on, get it together. Other jails with a startlingly high population include ISIS. That's an unfortunate name for a jail, especially in this context, isn't it? And Feltham, both in London. Experts point out there are large numbers of teenagers and young men of Pakistani and Bangladeshi heritage in the peak age group for criminal offending of 15 to 25. Muzamil Karashi, whatever his name is, a senior lecturer in criminology and criminal justice at Salford University, said, "Young Muslim men are under the official gaze from their school days onwards. They have the lens of the state turned on them. Certain populations can become suspect populations in the eyes of law enforcement agencies." Once again, I mean, it's just Islamophobia in the police force, guys. That's all it is. That's all it is. Too many white people in law enforcement, I'd imagine. Amal Imad of the charity Muslim Aid suggested that poor educational performance, problems finding fulfilling jobs, and family breakdown were factors in the increasing numbers of Muslims behind bars. She said, "It may be that they can't integrate into society. They don't think they have a positive chance to integrate in society. Obviously, their inability to integrate in society is our fault, not theirs, surely. Islamophobia, guys, come on." Mizanur Rahman, a spokesman for the organisation Muslim Prisoners, blamed the spike on Islamophobia and racism amongst police officers. And he's absolutely right, isn't he, guys? Guys? Surely he's right. You know, I'm getting so sick of stuff like this. There's only so much a man can take. I read stuff like this and I feel like having a mental breakdown sometimes. The level of apologism is off the charts. It's disgusting. According to these people, it's just simply not possible for this demographic of people to be criminal. Of course there are criminal elements in all demographics, so it's not all of them, guys, hashtag not all. But their reaction when looking at these numbers isn't to say, I wonder what the problem is there. Maybe we should go into these communities and figure out exactly what is happening here, because this is a disproportionate number of people who are turning to criminality. That's not their response. Their response is, oh, well, we must be racist then. The police are racist, the courts are racist, judges are definitely Islamophobic. That's why so many of these people are in jail. That's why over 1/5 of inmates in Category A high security prisons are Muslims. Yes, it's Islamophobia. Why can't people just be honest about this? There's a problem. The first thing you have to look at is the failure of multiculturalism. As I always say, when you have demographics breaking off into their own segregated areas, where they're not integrated with a wider society, they create their own society and therefore create their own laws and way of doing things. I did a video recently about acid attacks on the rise in London, and it's no surprise that the majority of them are coming from these sort of areas. From there, you can look at religion specifically, Islam. Now, the thing about Islam is, it's not just a religion. It's an entire way of life. It's politics, religion, everything combined into one. So when you combine that with a segregated area, then why is anyone surprised at all that criminality is on the rise? This stuff isn't only being allowed to happen, but it's being encouraged and supported by the left, who just can't bring themselves to criticize their own failures, especially when it comes to multiculturalism, their inability to tackle problems related to it because they don't want to be racist. And when you put them in a position where they have to defend police officers, their own justice system, or criminals, they're siding with the criminals and making excuses for them. Oh, it must be Islamophobia, it must be this, it must be that, it's racism. Here's a radical suggestion from me. Maybe these people are just committing crimes at a disproportionate rate. Maybe that's happening. Can you bring yourselves to even entertain that thought? It's not the police, it's not the courts, it's not the judges, it's not us, it's them. They are doing it. When will this cult in multiculturalism end?